Oops, gotta share screen here. Come on. Entire screen, share.
Said, but the whole entire book is free in PDF.
I wasn't supposed to start that yet. Uh-oh, it's not live. What's going on? Something I did wrong this time. I've done this thousands of times, but we're going to run late. Oh, there it is. It is live. Okay. So what I want to do first is look, if you're in D2L, you'll have, you guys that are new, if you don't know how to do D2L, let me know how to log in, because I'll keep everything in D2L. The syllabus is there, and we went over that, so I'm not going over that again. But here is the link to the free ebook, and it is like a, I don't know, 600 or 700 page book, so you cannot print the whole book here. If you want to print a chapter at a time from home, if you need a printed one, but you won't need it for class. So if you, however you want to take care of the book situation is up to you. And so all of our schedule, our assignments, everything will be inside Evernote here. And I'm going to go down to where we went over. These are the things, and I'm also going to look at the Google Drive and see, so that I'll know if someone needs help setting up their Google Drive. This is the instructions to do that. And here's, if you want to use Lucidchart or to use Lucidchart, you have to send me an email and say, hey, I want you to invite me, and I send you an invite. You won't actually have to do a flow chart, I think, until the project, and that's what Lucidchart is. This is where you download Python to your computer, and then here's where we're going to start today, because on these computers that are here for the new people, Python is already installed on there. So these instructions are if you want Python, which is what we're going to be using for programming. If you want it on your home computer, that's where you can go and download it. Okay, so before I get started on the textbook, is there anybody have any questions from last time that you looked over anything? Okay, and the other thing I forgot was that I'm going to do is go to Google Drive and show you the drives that I have found, the ones that I have, and then you guys can tell me if there's some of you that maybe, oh, that went to the wrong one, that haven't been able to create your Google Drive. Maybe you didn't understand or whatever. So on Google Drive for this class, here's the students I have: Shelby, Brandon, Charles, Cole, Dalton, Hunter, Jonathan, Laura, Pedro. And those are the only ones that I found their drives. So even if you created it, be sure you share it. Who thinks they've created it and yours isn't up here? Okay, Chris, let me look over here in incoming and see if you've done it since I put them all in a folder. Search. Let's see. Chris Maples and Marcus. Who else? James. Okay, you did yours already? Okay, check and make sure that you all have shared them. Let me see. Cole, Shelby, Charles, Hunter, Pedro, Dalton. Okay, there's Marcus. Okay, so I do have yours. For some reason, I missed it. Oh, no, I didn't want to do that. Okay, let me go over this way. Okay, now I should have yours, and I can Move to election class. Move. Okay, so I found Marcus, and the other one's Chris. Let me see if I can find where yours is. It was last week. So John, Zachary, Tammy. I don't see yours, Chris. It'd be C.
Yeah, I didn't share it.
You didn't share it. Okay, so we'll take care of that in a minute. Okay, the people who are new today, you can do, it's not, you don't have to have this done today, but it tells you in the instructions. I don't use Dropbox in D2L. I use the Google Drive, and you set up chapter folders, and you put your work in those chapter folders, okay? Who else is new? I know you two guys. Okay, so after class, if there's anything y'all don't understand, you can come up and we'll go over it. Okay, so now I need to get the textbook up. I had it up, but I guess not. I thought I had it. Did I have it in the other browser? No. Nope, must be here. Must have closed it out by accident. First. Oh, I also have the PDF. Where is that at? Let me see. I think I have it here. Maybe. No. Oh, I'll just do it this way. All right. Okay, who all read the README part in the textbooks? Everybody done the README and the intro, the ones that were here last time? That's the funny part. You'll notice this is a strange looking textbook. And whenever you get to the first part, oh, let me go to the next page. Let me see if I can get rid of some of these things up here so we can see it a little better. I guess if I was in the PDF, yeah, I could see the whole page at once, but we're having trouble with that right now. So continuous side by side. I think we'll do side by side here. Let's do it this way. Okay. So if you want to go ahead and pull this up on your computer, because I know those at the back can't really see my screen, what page I'm on or where I'm at. But if you log into D2L, you should be able to download PDF. If not, boy, that's not doing right. Let me see if I can do it this way. So here's the table of contents, tells you all the authors of the book, Head First Programming, what it's going to look like. It says here, wouldn't it be dreamy if there were an introductory programming book that didn't make you wish you were anywhere other than stuck in front of your computer writing code? I guess it's just a fantasy. And what I like about these books, and you all will get to tell me at the end of the semester if this is a pretty cool textbook, because this is the first time we've used it in this class, as I told you all last time. And I'm using it again. I used this kind of textbook in my HTML class about 4 years ago, and instructors didn't like it. So they said it wasn't boring enough. Okay. So we had to go away from it, but those instructors have since gone. And so I am going to try this out again. And I haven't used this exact programming one. I use the Head First HTML, but you notice in the table of contents, they've got a whole list. They've even got some high school books too, teach algebra, things like that. So it's a really neat way. Some students like it, some don't. So we'll see what happens. This one's supposed to be the second edition. I thought the second edition says, I bet I got the first edition open here. Darn. Head first programming. Oh no, there's only one edition of this. I'm thinking of my HTML book has 2 editions. Okay. So what will you learn from this book? These are some examples, and you'll notice everything in this book, there's pictures, lots of pictures. And a lot of that is because what we found out, and one reason I want to use this book, is that most young people like a lot of visual stuff. And I didn't grow up that way, but I have a 16-year-old, and I mean, she's always had visual technology in front of her. And so these are the books that I feel like help young people a lot better to learn. If you are good at just reading a book that is like a normal textbook and that's what you like, I can point you to some of those also, okay? So, and there are some of those in the library that teach programming. So you let me know if you're struggling, and I'm not saying that frivolously. I'm saying if this is not a good way for you to learn, if it's not a good learning style for you, let me know and I can point you to some other resources too, okay? Because that's what I feel like my purpose is whatever it takes, whatever way that you need to learn, just let me know and I'll try to help facilitate that. So what we're going to do in here is learn the basic tools to start writing the programs that interest you, not the generic software someone else thinks you should have, and get a better understanding of what software can and cannot do. When you're finished, you'll have the necessary foundation to apply to whatever language or software project you need or want to learn. Okay, and here it shows you some of the, see if I can make this a little bigger. If I make it bigger, I gotta turn and scroll a lot here, but we'll do that just in case. How many have the book pulled up? Do any of you in the back? Okay, great, because I know you can't see my screen. All right, so here's some of the funny pictures that you'll see. Navigate around your networked city of code. Here's something that it shows you keep your gym transactions away from your coffee shop sales. It's just showing you some of the kind of things that they'll illustrate where that the terms maybe make a little bit more sense. We're going to learn about arrays in here. Get aboard the array data train. Save your server from worldwide overload. So why does this book look so different? Oops, if I can get a hold of the right bar here. We think your time is too valuable to waste struggling with new concepts, using the latest research in cognitive science and learning theory to craft a multi-sensory learning experience. Head First Programming uses a visually rich format design for the way your brain works, not a text-heavy approach that puts you to sleep. Okay, so I know that I'm just reading to you all today because I know you all will skip over this. And if you have read it, I'm sorry, but I'm going to get to this. But in the future, like starting next Tuesday, I will expect you to have read the chapter because you don't even have to buy the book. If your book you've ordered and it hasn't come in, you've got it right here. So I just alleviated all excuses for not having your work done when you come on Tuesday. Okay, so today, just understand, I'm not going to read to you every day. All right, but I am going to do that today to make sure that you get on the right track with this book and understand how it goes about teaching you programming. Okay, because I know all of you are good readers. That's not a problem. Okay, so here's where I read about already the little cartoon blurb. And there's the authors. I'm not going to read those part. There's one page that I want to get to. First of all, here is the summary table of contents, which we did look at this last time. And this tells you, we figured out there's actually 11 chapters and there will be 10 quizzes. So 8 and 8.5 will be together. And hopefully we get finished before the end of the semester and we'll do some of these leftover top 10 things that we didn't cover. And the thing I do like about this book, the book that we've been using since 1992, only new editions of it, of course, had about 20 chapters and we could only ever cover about 7. So this introduces you to some of the more complicated concepts right at the beginning. So you have longer to digest those and to use those. But like when I give you your first project, it will just be using some of the basic stuff. You won't be using like loops the first project that I give you, because that's usually a more complicated concept. Okay, so let's go down here. Now, I don't think I had you all do intros online in D2L. So as we go along, if you have some experience with programming or a little bit you've played around with code, let me know. Maybe you can help some of the others if they struggle, because sometimes students can help other students because they talk the way they understand better sometimes than an instructor does. Okay, so this is the first chapter that we're going to be going into, finding your way. Writing programs gives you the power to control your PC or Mac, whichever you have. Almost everyone knows how to use a computer, but few people take the step and learn how to control it. If you use other people's software, you will always be limited by what other people think you want to do. If you write your own programs, and the only limit will be your own imagination. And see, when I started programming many years ago, I actually wrote my first program when I was 15 because my dad started programming in 1955. And so he took me down where he was converting a JV Battle Uniform Company. It was all the uniforms that all the officers wear. That was their company. And they had old crank posting machines. And they bought a computer called a Systems 3, IBM Systems 3. And he took me down there and he let me, it was little bitty punched cards then, and each line of punches represented a line of code that you can type in now. And the first programming language that I took at UCO was COBOL, and we had to punch cards, decks of cards. And those decks of cards would be about this high for one program. And you got to run it in the lab 3 times a night, and you didn't have computers at home. And if you didn't get it to run those 3 times, you had to wait until the next night to run it again. So you had to do a lot of desk checking. You guys don't have to do that. This tells you whether you're right or wrong right immediately. You get to see it in the browser. But that was in the 70s. And so we've come a long way really fast. I started with my first programming job in 1979 at the State Tax Commission. And even then, we had editors, but they were one-line editors, and you couldn't see the whole program at once. And so I just had a terminal. The computers were all down in the basement, and we were connected to them. And you all probably never even seen a computer room like that, huh? But the first one my dad worked on, the computer was the size of this whole floor. It was full of vacuum tubes. And that's what the computer consisted of. It had no memory, 8K, had 8K of memory. So I've been around it a very long time. And so like I said on the first day, please let me know if there's something that I'm not explaining, because a lot of times I know instructors assume that someone knows something and they just kind of roll right over it. And I have a tendency to do that. So you be sure and stop me if there's a question. Okay, so we're going to go on to, I'm not going to go through each one of the pages of the, I wish I had that up there and I'd go. Okay, so I'm going to go down to the README. Where's it at? Copyright dedication. I think it's how to use this book intro. Let me see if it's here. Yeah, no, these are not the ones. Let me go here. Is that the last one? That's the only disadvantage with not having it up on my, I thought I could have it on my iPad and it's being contrary. Okay. All right, we're just going to go on here to the intro. I thought there's a README in there somewhere, but I missed it.
I'm on the README. I don't know.
Okay, good. Okay, what page is it on?
32.
It's 32? Oh, triple. Okay, okay. Roman numeral 32? Okay, good. The technical, oh, I see, it's right above that. I think it's the one right before that. I think I saw it after I'd already clicked on this. One more back? Okay, thanks. Okay, this is a learning experience, not a reference book. And when I learned to program, we only had reference books. We didn't have someone to teach you. We had racks and racks of IBM books. We deliberately stripped out everything that might get in the way of learning whatever it is we're working on at that point in the book. And the first time through, you need to begin at the beginning, because the book makes assumptions about what you've already seen and learned. This is not headfirst Python. So even though we're going to be using Python to apply the concepts of programming, we're not really going to learn all there is to know about Python, okay? So is anyone in here ever messed with Python? Good. So have you written a lot in Python, or just kind of played with?
I was using it for Raspberry Pi and stuff like that.
With what?
The Raspberry Pi.
Raspberry. I'm not sure what that is.
It's a credit card sized computer where you can go in, hook cords up to it, and it actually does physical stuff with code.
Wow, I've never seen that. That's pretty cool. We use Python. I know when I talked to Professor Ken Dewey the other day, he said they're actually in cybersecurity going into using Python and Ruby. And so we've changed a lot where we were using JavaScript in here, and JavaScript is still used on the web, which I teach web design and graphic design. But JavaScript you can pick up in tutorials anywhere. If you learn any scripting language, it's easy to apply the principles that you're learning in this class to any programming language, whether it's C++, C, any other language. Okay, so we chose Python because it's a great language to start with, and it's also a great programming language to grow with. In fact, Python might be the only programming language you'll ever need to learn and use, although your employer might think otherwise. Of course, you have to start with something, and we can think of no better programming language to use than Python when first learning how to program. That said, this book isn't designed to teach you Python. It's designed to teach you programming. So most of the things we know, you are designed to highlight the programming concept, not the Python feature. Okay, let me make sure that. So this is just telling you how to install. And there is a Python 2, and you don't want to use Python 2 because it is not what this book is, assumes that you're using Python 3. Okay, and that, again, you only do that if you're at home. Okay, so we're going to cover the fundamentals of programming all in Chapter 1. That way, by the time you make it all the way to Chapter 2, you're creating programs that actually do something real, useful, and fun. We are getting to be amazed how much you can do with less than a dozen lines of code in Chapter 2. The rest of the book then builds on your programming skills, turning you from programming newbie to coding ninja master in no time. Okay, and that's because scripting is very easy, but the Chapter 1 is very long, and you have to digest and work through every part of it to be able to understand and build on it. So the reason I'm going through this README is because these are the things that are important that you do in every chapter. The activities are not optional. Now, like I told you, the sharpen the pencil, those, or I may have just told my HTML class this, the sharpen your pencil you need to do, but you don't have to put them in your folders. And you don't, of course, if you're using the PDF, just take out a piece of paper just for your own benefit. Whatever learning style, whatever makes it make more sense to you, do it that way. If you can do it all in your head, and you're learning it, the only problem is the exercises I need to see in your chapter folder. So if there's a box that says exercises, remember what I told you, all the solutions are at the end of the chapter. So you can go there and you can just post all those in your chapter if you want. But that's not the best way to learn. If you don't know programming and this is your first class in that, you need to work through those exercises. The reason I'm using a book where the solutions are all there is because it's very frustrating if it's on the weekend and you can't get a hold of me and you get stuck on something. Well, this way you will have the answer, but you need to have worked through it first. And when you get stumped, look at the solution and be able to solve it. And then you say, oh, now I see what that is. But when we come back to class, if you still don't understand how it was arrived, how they arrived at that solution, then please ask questions. So the redundancy is intentional and important. Our distinct difference in a head first book is we want you to really get it. And we want you to finish the book remembering what you've learned. Most reference books don't have retention and recall as a goal. But this book is about learning. So you'll see some of the same concepts come up more than once. And see, that's how I have always felt learning should be, is I can sit up here and I can lecture and I can put all the information out there. Then I can give you tests and you can regurgitate what you've memorized on a test. But how much of that do you remember when you go to the programming language? This is an application class, and so the purpose is that you're actually able to leave here with what you've learned and apply it in your next class. And so we used to call this, when I've homeschooled my children, I have one 39, 24, and I have really spread out. But I was homeschooled also, and I started college at 15. So, you know, there's things that you get with individual help. And the thing is, in this class, I want to try to do that as much as possible because every one of you have a different way to learn. Some of you can take off on your own without any help and do great. Others need help. Some are kind of halfway in between. So my goal here is what I call mastery learning. It's not about the letter grade you get. It's about the time you put in and can you take out of here the knowledge that you need to be successful later down the road. So most examples in this book are shown within the smallest possible context so that the part you're trying to learn is clear and simple. Don't expect all of the examples to be robust or even complete. They are written specifically for learning and aren't always fully functional. We've placed a lot of the code examples on the web so you can copy and paste them as needed. You'll find them at 2 locations. So these, this is an Internet Explorer file, I think, i.e. maybe. But you can go to both of these websites and get all of the examples, the exercises, and they'll run in Python, is what they're telling you. So the brain power exercises don't have answers. For some of them, there is no right answer, and for others, part of the learning experience of the brain power activities is for you to decide if and when your answers are right. In some of the brain power exercises, you will find hints to point you in the right direction. Okay, so now we're going to go to the actual chapter 1. And we're going to work through some of the exercises. Writing code. Writing programs gives you the power to control your PC. And almost everyone knows how to use a computer, and this is what we read earlier. It will make you think more precisely, programming will, and it will teach you to analyze and solve problems logically. Do you want to be programmed or be the programmer? And you know what most of us don't realize is that every day when you get up in the morning, you do things in sequential steps. That is a routine that you have to, whenever you solve a problem on the computer, you have to do that. You have to tell the computer the steps to take to solve a problem. So when we get up in the morning, some people get up, put their feet on the ground, go straight to the shower, wash, get out. You know, there's steps, but we do it automatic. But the computer, it only knows what you tell it to do, step by step. And so you cannot leave any steps out. And that's what you'll see as we go along. You'll think, well, you know, like for instance, when you're working with numbers, you have to tell the computer that that variable is a number and not a character. So there's every detail that you have to be a detailed person to be a programmer. Okay, so programming lets you do more. You've got problems to solve and work to do, but your existing software doesn't quite cut it. Even with all those programs on your computer, you still need to do something different, something specific to you. If only I could program Twitter. What do you mean that's not the way the website was programmed? So here, when I started in programming at the State Tax Commission, we were working on a program to compute 1978 taxes. Okay, I had to write an online program to do it because there was nothing we could purchase off the shelf that would compute Oklahoma taxes the way we needed it computed. So that's what it's saying here. There was a period of time, can't remember if it was in the 80s, when there was a lot of what we called canned software put on the shelf that you could buy, businesses could buy to run their business. Those who could afford to hire a programmer, they could have it tailored to what their business needed. And that's what my dad did when we went to JB Battle, is he wrote the software to run their business, to post, to do accounting, accounts receivable and accounts payable. Okay, so what it does is it's going to put you in charge. But how does programming work? So first of all, we're going to look at a simple game written in Python. This is one of those that sharpen your pencil, and good, there's a marker over there. This code is a guessing game program. Study it carefully, and opposite each line of code in the program, write down what you think the code does. If you're not sure what a particular line of code does, don't worry, but try to guess anyway. One line has already been entered to get you started, and right after this is the answers. So this is actual, oh, that's not very clear at all. This is actual Python code. I guess because it's so light, maybe that's why it's like that. Let me see if I enlarge it, if it's a little better. Maybe. No, that didn't help. Okay, so I'm going to go over here and we're going to talk about what each one of these lines of code you think does. So up here it says print welcome. Now, Shelby's has written a little bit of Python, so he can probably tell us what every one of these lines of code does, right? Okay, so let's see those who haven't written Python. He can help us out if we can't figure it out. Print welcome. Where is it going to print welcome?
Like an opening screen.
That's right, the very first screen. Has anyone ever written the hello program? Yep. Where you in the browser, you can do it in HTML. Okay, so what is going to show up in the browser window? Not this word print, only this word welcome and the exclamation point, because that's what's between the exclamation marks. So that first line of code, we will have on the screen welcome. Whatever we want to put between those exclamation points is what, or quotation marks, is what is going to print on the screen. So print is a word, is a term, that's a key term in Python. In other languages, there's sometimes different words than print. It may say display, it may say alert. In JavaScript, we say alert sometimes. We say document.writeLine in JavaScript. So that's why this is a little bit easier sometimes than JavaScript, because in JavaScript you have to have document.writeLine, then parentheses, and then you have to have the quotes, and it's a lot longer than something to the screen. This is simply what you want to happen. Print welcome. Then this is, what does that say? G equals input. Guess the number. So what's going to happen now?
It's going to replace the line that says guess the number.
Guess the number. And where is it going to go, what they put in there? Why does it say G equals? What's that? What's G? A variable. Does anybody know what a variable is? I know if you had algebra, you had variables. But if it's been a long time since you had algebra, you may not remember. What does the word vary mean?
Different.
Changes, right? It changes. So it's saying this variable, G, it's saying whatever the user puts in. So now I've got a G up here, and it's a variable, and it's not going to show on the screen, but what right? Is that your name?
Laura.
Laura. Said is correct. This is going to come next up on the screen. Guess the number and a question mark. So that will come up next on the screen. And then it says guess equals integer G.
So it's going to be a number.
That's right. INT means integer. So it's going to put whatever the user typed into the screen in G, it's going to put it into.
So is
the
that
variable
assigning integer to the variable G?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
No.
It's saying that G is an integer.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
just saying in parentheses G is an integer, and whatever that integer is, put it into guess.
Okay.
It's the equal sign in Python is called an assignment operator. Okay, it's going to assign
Okay.
whatever's on the right to the left. Okay, so here we go, guess. So now guess is up here, and it's equal to whatever was in G. Then if guess, and that's why we have double equals here. Anytime you're comparing two things, you have to use a double equals. If you forget, which everybody does, if you forget and you put one equal sign there because you're used to a comparison being an equal. But this, then what it'll do is it will just put whatever's on the right into the variable guess because it doesn't know you're wanting to compare. So that's why you have to use a double equals for comparison. So it says if guess is the same as, what's that number?
Number 5.
Number 5, then you're going to do what is here. If guess is not equal to number 5, then you're going to do this statement.
And that's what else is.
That's what else is. So in this one little game program, then at the end, it prints game over again. So let's say that the user did put a 5 in there. So G is equal to 5. So guess is now equal to 5. So you would print it would print you win, and then it would fall out of the if else and print game over. Okay, so that is a straightforward. If we were in the old book, we wouldn't learn if then else till 4 weeks down the road. We would just execute the statement straight through. But I think everybody can understand if, do this, else, and this is a Python syntax. You remember I talked about syntax? That's the only difference in programming languages and scripting languages is what the same thing that you learn in English Comp 1, the punctuation, the syntax of the language. And the syntax of Python says that after an else, you have to put a colon. If we were doing JavaScript, at the end of every statement, you have to put a semicolon. So that's the only thing that's different, but the if-else and the concept of what you're wanting to do is the same. So we're just using Python as the vehicle to code our guessing game, but we could do this with any language as long as we understand what our purpose was to welcome the user, ask for input, and compare the input to a value. And then whatever that value is, if it's one thing, print out something else, print something else out. Anybody have any questions? Yes, Brandon.
I'm just doing it on here with you, and after it says print you win, I go down and put else with a colon, and it says invalid syntax.
Where are you at in Python?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do that here in just a second. We'll come up and we'll code it and see why it's doing that on you. Did you code it yet, Shelby?
Yeah.
Did you use the idle oh, do you have it on yours or did you do it on the PC? What did you use?
Idle.
You did use idle? Okay. I've got it already coded too. We'll look at it here in just a second. Let me see. Because that's what, this is just telling you what we did. Okay, let me go. So how do you run the code? Okay, instead of going through this section, I'll just go ahead and open it up so we don't run out of time where I have it. already typed in here somewhere. Let me find it. Spring 15 T Python. Oops. Oops, it still didn't open it. Opened idle first. Open.
Wait, what is idle?
Idle is, if you go, yeah, it's the Python interface. It's called IDE. It's the Interface Development Environment. And it should be on, if you go to Start Programs, we look at Python. Yeah. Google Drive. Spring 15. Let me find it again. It didn't do it the way I thought. Oh, I did have my ebook there. Okay. All right. Okay, so here it is, typed into idle. Oh, that didn't make it bigger. Let me see if I can make it bigger. Format. Oh, no, that isn't what I wanted. Okay, so this is printed in. I don't know if you can see it, but back to back. But this should look identical to what that code was. And so now I want to see it run and see what happens. So the way I do that is I go up here to the run and run the module. Welcome. Guess the number. So if I put 5 in, you win. Game over, right? So I can also run it again. I can run it however many times to make sure it works the right way. Okay, so where did my run go now? There it is. Run module. This time, let's put in something that's to test my comparison. You lose. Game over. Okay, so Brandon, did you get yours to work? Okay, see if you've got, now you notice that the Python idle interface does color code things. You can go in and set preferences, and I think it tells you in your book maybe how to do that, to set preferences where you can tell that everything that's going to print between quotes is green. These are keywords, and this is part of an if-else. These are variables that are black, so you can go in and color code it too. That will make you pick up. Like if I leave a quote off here, it should change the color. Oh, it's not going to do it. Dreamweaver does, but that didn't do it. Are we trying it? This is what you would save in no, I think this is an exercise. Let me see. Okay, so this is one of the things. Does anybody need me to leave that up there? I'm going to put it away if you don't. And go on in the little bit here. So this part tells you that what we typed into the idle screen is called the source code, because that's not what you actually see in the browser window. That's any programming language that you write in. That language is called the source code. And in the Python editor, the file extension is .py. So the name of my file was game.py, right? Because I named it game, and Python is the .py file extension. So that's what the editor does. But computers can't process that code very well. That's why we need a tool to translate the human-friendly source code into the binary ones and zeros that computers do understand. That's what an interpreter does. In this book, the interpreter that we're using is Python. Now, when I took programming, when I got my degree, back when I told you, I had to actually learn ones and zeros, registers. I had to code in assembler language. Now, Ken was telling us the other day that cybersecurity is getting to the point where they want people to know straight C language, which is the first one that I started teaching here in 91 or 2, something like that. and not object-oriented, which is what you all, the only kind of languages that you all, this is object-oriented. But then you would also learn assembler language. And those people that are engineering students, that's more what you have to do. It's where you actually write code that addresses the registers in code. And because even though you're writing this and it seems like a programming language to you, it's still not the language of the computer. It's still human language. And so the computer, the interpreter here is Python. When you write in C++ and in C language, you have to have what's called a compiler. You can't immediately see like you can in the browser with an interpreter. A compiler actually goes through and converts your program to ones and zeros for the computer to understand. And then it runs. And so if you have an error, an exception, then you have to go and find it. It's a lot harder to find than it is in scripting languages. Scripting is all done with interpreters, and it's real quick that you can see if it runs. Okay, so here is what happens. Source code, you save it as a Python file, then the Python interpreter translates the text into what the computer will understand, and then it outputs it. So the editor and the Python interpreter is what you have in that built-in application called IDLE, which does both jobs and more. IDLE enables you to write and edit Python code. It translates the code into binary form, and finally it runs the Python program. So it stands for Integrated Development Environment. So that's what we just did, the next steps that are on the next page of writing the source code. Oops, there it is. There's what we wrote in IDLE, and it shows you exactly what it should look like. Then you would click Find the new window menu option and creates an edit window, and then that's the code that you type in. Be sure to enter the code in exactly as it appears here. Don't forget those colon characters. This is how IDLE looks on your computer. Things might look a little different on yours, but I think the PC did it the same way. So it tells you do this. And so that's one of the things that you do. Prepare and run your code. If you choose File Save, from the menu you can save your code in a file. And that's the file that you'll upload to your chapter folder on Google Drive. Run it. It tells you exactly how to do what we just did here. That's the test drive. Okay, so let's look at these that are not questions, okay? I've never heard of Python. Is it popular? So this tells you when Python was used in lots of cool places: Google, Industrial Light and Magic, YouTube, and NASA, to name a few, all use Python. We think they know what they're doing. So when I'm done with this book, I'll throw Python away and use something else like C# or Java. Only if you want to. Python might be the only programming language that you'll ever need to use. But a buddy of mine told me I should learn Java or C#. Why are you not using either of those programming languages in this book? Well, both Java and C# are great programming technologies, but they can be difficult to learn, especially when you're just starting out. This is not the case with Python. And anyway, this is a book that's designed to teach how to program, and using Python as your first language will help us to do just that. And see, when I learned to program, I was doing it on the job, and I was taking classes at UCO, but they were full-blown languages. They didn't have a fundamentals class. And if you go like to OU, they don't require you to have a fundamentals class. They'll throw you in Java or C++ or one of those classes. And the thing is, the advantage to this is that you learn that there's certain things that you do to solve a problem, whether you're in Java, C++, and the logic behind solving it you do here, so that when you get to that language class, you're just learning the syntax of that language. You look at the problem and you say, oh, I know I need an if-else here. and I need a loop down here to solve the problem. So you're not racking your brain on figuring out how to solve the problem, okay? So this is like solving word problems, and I know you probably hated them in grade school. Word problems, we called them. But this is really what we do. In programming, we have to learn to logically solve the problem. How many of you like troubleshooting? Does anybody like figuring out things? Like to do that? Well, that's what programming is really about. And when I used to work in banks and we'd go in and install new systems, that's what my job was. When we converted data from one system, I'd have to write the conversion program to move that data into a new computer system, in a new language, a new type of hardware. And so troubleshooting, before the bank got back up on Mondays or Tuesdays, however long it took us, I would have to sit there until I got all the data converted. And a lot of times there would be data exceptions, data that had been keyed in wrong. And I had to find out what line of code was blowing up on what data and what piece of data. So those are things that are pretty challenging, pretty fun if you like that kind of thing, because you would sit there and you would think, oh, I found it. After 36 hours, your eyes are like, oh, I can't see anymore. And then you finally find the problem. So that is a lot what you do in the beginning, because most of the time, unless you're working for a small company or you're having your own business, you don't get to start from scratch coding. You usually get to take somebody else's code and find the problems in it or modify it. And that can be challenging because people think differently, so the way they solve problems is different. So here it tells you there's two main releases, 2 and 3, and Ken said it was very important that we were in 3. That's why we went ahead and went with this book. Will Python run on my phone just like Java? That really depends on your phone. Python is designed to run on lots of different technologies and operating systems. Running your own code on your own phone is a very specific requirement, and Java has that pretty well covered at the moment. Although mobile apps is actually not, some of them are not Java. The ones on the iOS are not Java. So, you know, you have to learn Cocoa, but they're actually going to a new one. What's it called? Swift. So there are new technologies constantly. And so that's why it's really important that you learn the concepts behind programming and not learn specific languages, and that's it. Because if you learn these concepts, you can apply them in every language. Why is the Python IDE called idle? We talked about that. But do any of you all know what Monty Python is? Monty Python's Flying Circus? Okay. Well, the guy who created Python, he was a big lover of Monty Python. So that's where the name came from. His name, but idle, it has more to do with Eric Idle, who's the guy who developed that. So here it talks a little bit about that. What does integer G mean? It tells Python to interpret the user's input as a number rather than a letter. Within programming languages, the number 5 is different than the letter 5. Because if you're wanting to print 5 out to the screen, like in an address, then you would have to put it between quotes. But if you're wanting to do calculations with it, or you're wanting to do a comparison with it, then you would make it an integer. Okay, so for the rest of the assignments in Evernote, before you come back on Tuesday, is to finish chapter 1, and everyone has the book available, complete all the exercises, place them in the Google folder, and take the reading quiz in D2L. Now, remember that in D2L, when I open a quiz, it only stays open a certain length of time. And this one is open until January 25th, which is Sunday, right? Let me see, maybe Monday for this class. No, Sunday night at midnight. So that means you have until tomorrow morning, the 23rd, until midnight Sunday night to take the quiz. Okay? And if you don't get it done, I don't reopen it. These are only 10-point quizzes, and I would be forever opening and reopening and all that if you forget. So the thing is, look at it, put that date down when you go into D2L. You need to wait until you finish reading the chapter, but if you want to try it before, these are not difficult quizzes. They're basically just testing that you read the chapter, okay? And of course, I don't have any way of governing whether you use your book or not. So I say use it if you want to, but they're timed. So if you haven't read the chapter and you don't know where to find the answer, you might have trouble getting all of them done, okay? All right, we will see you on Tuesday. Anybody have any questions? Got about 5 minutes left. I did that on purpose so the new people, if they need to ask any questions, can, or anybody else. All right, you guys have a good weekend, and I will see you on Tuesday. Okay, let me quit this.